Hello, techies. How are you all? Hope you're doing good. Welcome back to my channel, Tech with Sony. And this is another video continuation with my Spring Boot part 2. So, as I said in my previous video, that we are going to discuss about the request param and path variables. So, in this video, we'll a bit deep dive about the request params and path variable, how we can use it, and what are the uses of these request params and path variables. So, so if you didn't watch my previous part, just do watch the previous part 2 video of the Spring Boot, so you'll understand that what exactly we're going to use these request params and path variables. And first case, like if you want to use a request params and path variables, we are exactly using these two variables with the HTTP. Mostly like most commonly we used with the get HTTP method. Okay, to interact with the your REST service. So let's talk about a little about the request param. So as usual, like we'll have some 2 minutes of theoretical knowledge to understand this, what exactly it is. So request param, so this is something like you're passing a parameter in the request, right? So like in other case, like say for example, along with your endpoint, you wanted to send few params, which is very useful for your, to retrieve some data from the database or else like downstream service. So how do you use that? Like, so in order to define a request params, like it's simply like after the code string, you can pass the params or whichever you want, like this in this format, as many as you can. There is no limitation. Or how do you like map these arguments with your inside your controller method? So let's assume this is my controller method sample, and this is my request mapping. Okay, so if you look into this one, this is something new that I added here. This is something like at the rate request param annotation. So this does the auto typecasting. So whatever value you want to send it, you can send it whatever value. But only thing is like you can define the value here. It's up to you. The data typecasting will be auto type. Okay. The only thing you want to remember that always like this value which you passed, that argument one, and this supposed to match with this argument one, the which I highlighted with the red color. The same goes for argument two also. And you see the other one required true and required false. I'll talk about these things a little bit later. But for now, you just remember this, what exactly this does. After that, once you have closed this request param, then you can define your own variable which holds this value which is coming from the request param. Right? This is all about the request param. And what about the path variable? It's something like along with your URL. It's nothing but your endpoint. So there is no confusion, or I guess say when you pass out like a where along with the URL you can pass your path variables. That's it's called as a path variable. A variable which passes it along with the URL. It's called path variable. As I said, like this is something it will be mapped from here. If you look into this one, the highlighted part, the exactly okay. Let me put this in red color. And exactly, if you see this one, this part, right? So this path is matched till this point, and then after that, something new comes here, like you are passing something in a curly braces with path var one. I mean, like I want to say, like this is a path variable one, so I just mentioned as path var one. So where do you use this path var one? So as I said, like this path var one exactly need to match with this the value along with the path variable annotation here. So you're going to use this exactly here, pathway one, right? So the mapping and typecasting would be happen along with the URL, and it will take this pathway one and consider this is a path variable, and it is put the value in the string variable called pathway one. It's up to you. You can define as your whatever name you want. Okay, uh, there is nothing like it should match with this value or this path variable. So this is something like about request param and path variables. I hope there is no confusion here. So the request param which you pass it as a in the request parameters, the path variable which you pass along with your endpoint URL. Okay, so this is how you have to define your path variable. Okay, so hope this is works out in your brain. Let's put this in your code part. So I try to explain in the code level also. So this is continuation with us, our program, which we initially created with illustrating all the get, post, and delete methods. With this, I have created one more controller, a REST controller, added with the REST controller. When you add it with the REST controller, it becomes as a controller. So request param and path variables, I named it as whatever you want, you can name it. So let's and for now I just created this. I just want to explain this one. Let me explain this. I'll put like this. Yeah, this is good. So as you see in the document, I just wanted to replicate the same usage part. I don't want to, deviate from this. So if anyone is referring this document, they can reuse the same way. If you see this is my endpoint mapping, my path and my endpoint. And the request param I just put as augment one, and another request param I put it as augment two and augment two. And I printed this hi from first app, get HTML along with the request param, something like this. And the other case, I have one more sample two controller method with the path variable annotation. So you can observe that this is the path where one, I guess you are able to see this path where one exactly mapping with this path where one. Okay, and rest like this is request param and request param, and you can display whatever you want it on the console. So how do you test it? Of course, we have a Postman tool. Let's put this one in the Postman tool. Let's start the Spring Boot app. Yep. It started in the port called N001, and let me open the Postman tool. So these are the two, two requests I have created. So how did I got this one? Let me explain how to create this. So initially I have endpoint like this, and then you see there is a params here. Okay, basically I just want to add the request param. So in the Postman you see these are the params, right? Let's click on the params. When you click, there would be one tray would be open here. Just go to the program. So I have argument one param, just copy, put it out here. Let's pass stuff with Tony. Okay, let's see any other. Yeah, we have argument two, of course, a beautiful spring. Let me write on spring example. These are the two arguments. Okay, so if I click on the hit button, yeah. Right from first I have the get method along with request param argument one. This is something should be gap. Okay, take with Tony. Oops, let me do. There's a mistake here. Okay, copy over here. I'll put this. So do remember, we are always no need to restart our app. It is automatically restarting because as we started our project with DevTools, right? Don't forget that. Okay, let me start. Yeah, here you go. Check with Tony and Spring Boot example. So we are able to capture two arguments in from the request params. This is a beautiful, right? So you can use these request params further your service level or else DB level, repository level. I'll talk about those two classes or annotation service and repositories in later tutorials. And we have a path variable again. There is a beautiful path variable here. So here sits it. So how do you pass? So let's have one more. You know already well that clicking the params, you can add up params, right? So path variable, something you can pass it along with the URL, right? You see this is passing along with it. This is path variable, right? After that, this starts the request params. So if I click on hit button, you see along with request params, augment text with Tony. Okay, again something. Sorry, my bad. It is supposed to be augmented. Yeah. So now you can see this text with Tony augment with Spring Boot, Spring with AWS. What happened to this? Okay. Yeah. So augment one, text with Tony augment to Spring with AWS, and with one path params called this is path variable. Yeah, this is path variable. So this with this tutorial, you are able to capture the request params with the annotations called request param, and you are able to capture the path variable with the annotations called path variable. Yeah, this is all about like request params and path variables, and hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll be sharing this document again with pushing into GitHub repository. You can get it from the GitHub repository for your reference. And also, in my next tutorial, I'll talk about little about this required true and false, and there are some request validations need to be done. Not only this, we're going to discuss about like how do you validate the request body along with the HTTP method called post and put. Okay, so we're going to discuss about like HTTP method put and post along with the request body. Then after we'll move on to the request validations. We're using some annotations and with the Hibernate validations and dependency called Hibernate validation dependency. With that, we can see how we can validate the request param and how can we validate the JSON body. Yeah. Thanks. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like, please subscribe and share with your friends, with your and also to like if you like really like. Thanks for encouraging me and yeah. See you later. Thank you. Bye.